This project began as a simple idea of sewing a Regency-era dress using historical methods, which means no sewing machine and many, many hours of hand sewing. This later became the dress that I had to spend an entirety of a day hand sewing on to finish in time for a Regency picnic with two of my friends. I began this project with my Regency stays and a Regency petticoat that I made last year. And as for the construction of the dress itself, I didn't go particularly off of one specific dress. I took inspiration from several different photos. Most of my research just consisted of looking at different pictures of dresses on Pinterest and just kind of figuring things out as I went and trying to make them look accurate to the photos I was referencing. I began this process with a mock-up. Alrighty, so I finally completed the mock-up for the bodice. This part is going to be underneath the actual bodice. This is what is going to be where the closure is going to be, and there will be buttons here probably, and then the rest of the bodice will come up and button here. But it took forever to figure out the back shape. I had my friend Lily help me with that, but it is finally ready. I'm going to start cutting it out. In this part of the video, I poorly explained how the closures of this dress were going to work. So this is an apron front dress, which was common in the Regency period because the wearer was able to get in and out of the dress by herself, since the closures were in the front of the dress rather than the back. The dress would first be put on much like a jacket with a long skirt. Then there would be two front panels that would cross over the bust, which would be pinned or buttoned into place. And then the rest of the front bodice, which would be attached to the front of the skirt, would also be buttoned into place over those front panels. I then cut the bodice pieces out of my lining fabric and outer layer. The edges of the outer layer and lining layer were then pressed and pinned together. After pressing, I sewed these together with a felling stitch. I attached the front bodice pieces to the back by first ironing down the edges of the outer layer, and then pinning only that layer to my back piece, which I then backstitched the front piece through both the lining and outer layers of the back piece. This is sort of confusing, but what this does is creates a stronger seam rather than just sewing the outer layers and the lining layers to each other separately. Since my outer fabric is a thin cotton, sewing in this way will make for a sturdier seam. Okay, I should probably be trying this on with my stays, but it looks really good. I'm very excited that it's just pinned together right now. But I'm getting very excited about this. For the overbodice part, or the apron front of the dress, I basically just winged it. I created this sort of rectangle shape with little tabs on either side for the buttonholes to be. And this was essentially just laying different pieces on my mannequin until I came up with the final shape. Then I copied that piece over onto my dress fabric. I also wanted a drawstring at the top of the bodice, so I made one out of crocheted embroidery thread. Then I pressed the drawstring channel and sewed it into place. Hello. So this is how she's currently looking, which I am very pleased with. I probably should have tried it on with my stays, but I really could not be bothered. So what I've done is I have two little buttons here, which are how this is gonna open. And then I just have it pinned at the bottom, and this will look a lot less like that once the skirt is here laying it down. The bottom of this will be gathered down to the skirt front. And then I have a little drawstring here so that I can tie it as tight as I need to so that stays secure. And yeah, it'll look like this, which I am very pleased because this looks very good. And I was a little bit worried that this was just gonna kind of look like that, but or not have enough gathers, but this looks very good. I'm very pleased with this. And next I'm going to make sure that my head is actually in frame. Next, I am going to start working on the sleeves, and I'm going to try to get those done today. And then after that is the skirt, and then it'll be done. And I'm very excited because I have to finish it by this weekend for the picnic. As for the sleeves, I took an existing sleeve pattern and modified it, and then I made a mock-up just to ensure that it would fit the larger arm size of this Regency pattern. I wanted to explain how I did the sleeves since I didn't film any of me actually doing it while I was doing it. So I cut out that sleeve pattern that I already explained, and then I sewed on this lace because I was like, well shoot, how exactly am I gonna gather these down if I want to have this as my bottom and not have like a cuff. And I didn't really have any bias tape or the desire to make a bunch of little, a drawstring case. So what I ended up doing was I found this lace in my cord and I sewed it on, and I think it looks very good. And then I sewed together the sleeve using a French seam. And then I just backstitched the sleeve into place along the arm side. And I did have to gather a wee bit at the top, which I was hoping not to have to do, but I really don't mind it. It looks pretty good. And then on the inside, you can see where I backstitched. Then I went around the edges and then just whip stitched it down because I didn't quite catch the edges every single time. And it was really hard to get it pinned in place the right way. As you can see where the gathers are, it's pretty wonky, but it looks really nice from the outside, and I really like the texture of the back stitching. So there's that. And then for my drawstrings, I have my little pieces of crochet, which are attached to other strings for some reason. Here they are, and I don't have someone to like tie these for me currently, so I just yanked on them. Yeah, there's how they look. So now I have to go work on the skirt, which I have to get done literally today because the picnic is tomorrow. After that, I measured and cut out the front panel of the skirt, which then would be attached to the front part of the bodice. Then I gathered down the bottom part of the bodice to match the width of the front skirt panel. At this point, I was getting very excited to see it finally all coming together, and I'm very happy with how the gathers of the bodice look with the front skirt panel attached to them. And after that, I gathered down the rest of the skirt fabric to the back bodice panel. At this point, it was getting very late at night, so I do not have much footage of me sewing the skirt on. I'd spent the entire day hand sewing and stayed up until nearly 2 a.m. just to get this done in time for the picnic the following day. And here she is in all of her final glory. I'm just so proud of how it came out and all of the time and hours I spent on this. I'm so glad that I followed through and hand sewed the entire thing. I'm so proud of what I managed to do, and I'm so happy with how actually historical it looks. I'm definitely excited for more historical sewing projects in the future now that I'm not as intimidated by them and know that I can accomplish something like this. That was really the main goal of this project, to dedicate to myself to something historical, and I followed through and just did it. So thank you for watching and expect more sewing adventures to commence.
Oh my! You look like you're glaring. Oh my gosh.
Can you eat these?
Yeah. Not very good.
Your little commentary is going to be funny.
Necessary for pie eating. It does kind of hurt on your side. Yeah, it gets annoying after.